We're bringing in younger management. My name is Calvin Rodas. I'm 51 years old, and I had been managing the flagship property of Royale Vista Hotel in Miami for 9 years. Mason Clark, the regional director, sat across my desk with that corporate smile that never reached his eyes. Behind him stood Trevor Sims, a fresh MBA at just 28 years old, likely earning half of what I did. Cost efficiency is key in today's market, Mason continued, as he slid a folder across my mahogany desk. You've done excellent work here, Calvin, but we need to adapt. I glanced at the severance package, 2 weeks' notice, standard exit clause, nothing vindictive, just cold corporate math. The Champions League final was set to take place in London in 14 days, and our Miami property had been booked solid for months with overflow guests, UEFA representatives, international media, and corporate sponsors who couldn't secure accommodations. In London, the transition should be seamless, Mason said. Trevor here has experience with high-volume operations. Trevor nodded eagerly, likely believing that managing a Marriott in Orlando qualified him for this role. I had been handling diplomatic guests, celebrities, and crisis management since before he graduated college, but I kept that to myself. When do you need me out? I asked. End of this week would be ideal. I looked at my computer screen. 3 reservation alerts were blinking red. The booking system had been malfunctioning for months, duplicating entries, dropping confirmations, and creating phantom reservations. I had developed a workaround script that ran every morning, manually syncing our third-party platforms with the main database. Without it, we'd have chaos. I'll need to brief Trevor on the operational systems, I said. Mason waved his hand dismissively. He'll figure it out. These younger managers adapt quickly to technology. That's when I realized they were going to learn the hard way. I spent the next 3 days cleaning out my office, handing over key cards and watching Trevor take notes on guest protocols. He asked about VIP preferences, staff schedules, and vendor contracts, standard stuff, yet he never inquired about the reservation system fixes. On my last day, I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, watching the staff through the lobby windows. These people had trusted me for nearly a decade. I had guided them through hurricanes, economic downturns, and corporate restructures. Now they'd have to navigate Trevor's leadership style. I turned the key in the ignition and drove away. What they didn't know was that my custom script would stop running in 72 hours. The system would revert to its default settings, and all those manual fixes I had implemented would vanish. By the time the final week bookings for the Champions League overflow were confirmed, none of the updates would stick. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had started with Royale Vista Hotels 12 years ago as an assistant manager in Atlanta, working my way up through Richmond, Nashville, and finally landing the Miami flagship. This wasn't just a job for me. My wife, Patricia, had passed away 4 years ago from cancer, and the hotel had become my life. 60-hour weeks, holidays on site, emergency calls at 3 a.m. I had sacrificed everything to build this property's reputation. Under my management, we'd hosted 3 presidential visits, countless celebrity weddings, and major corporate events. Our guest satisfaction scores consistently ranked in the top 5% nationwide, and revenue had increased by 37% during my tenure. I knew every guest's preferences, every staff member's family situation, and every vendor's delivery schedule. The reservation system had been a nightmare since corporate upgraded it 18 months ago. The new software couldn't properly sync with booking platforms like Expedia, Hotels.com, and our corporate website. Rooms would get double booked, confirmations would vanish, and VIP suites would suddenly show as unavailable, despite being empty. I had brought this to Mason's attention repeatedly, but his response was always the same. Work with what we have, Calvin. A new system isn't in the budget. So I taught myself basic coding, spent weekends writing a script that would catch discrepancies, flag phantom bookings, and manually sync the databases every morning at 6 a.m. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. The system looked stable from corporate's perspective because I was fixing it behind the scenes. My assistant manager, Elena, had been nervous about the transition. Trevor seems nice, but he doesn't understand how complex this operation is, she had said during my last week. He'll learn, I replied, but I knew better. I had watched Mason's pattern over the years: hire expensive, experienced managers to build market share and reputation, then replace them with cheaper alternatives once the property was established. He had done it in Tampa, Jacksonville, and Orlando. The new managers usually lasted 18 months before getting overwhelmed and quitting. The difference was that those properties hadn't been running on manual fixes. They had functioning systems, properly trained staff, and realistic booking volumes. Miami was different. We were handling twice our designed capacity because of my workarounds. During my final staff meeting, I had given them my personal cell number. If anything comes up that you can't handle through normal channels, call me, I had said. Elena hugged me at the door. This place won't be the same without you. I had spent 9 years building relationships with tour operators, travel agents, and corporate accounts. They trusted me personally, not just the Royal Vista brand. Many of them had my direct line and expected me to handle their special requests personally. Trevor would find that out soon enough. The first call came on Tuesday morning, 5 days after I left. Elena's voice was strained. "Calvin, I'm sorry to bother you, but we have a problem with the Champions League bookings." I was in my kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the news. For the first time in 9 years, I had slept past 7 a.m. "What kind of problem?" I asked. "The system is showing conflicting reservations. We have 43 VIP suites booked for the same dates, but we only have 31 VIP suites total." Trevor says it's just a display error. I closed my eyes. My script hadn't run in 5 days. The system was reverting to its broken default state. "Have you tried running a manual sync?" I asked. "Trevor doesn't know what that means," she said. "Corporate will send a tech team next week." Next week would be too late. The Champions League final was in 9 days, and guests would start arriving on Friday. "Elena, you need to check every single reservation manually. Cross-reference the confirmation numbers with the actual room assignments." Trevor said not to worry about it. He thinks I'm overreacting. I hung up and stared out my window. Part of me wanted to drive over there and fix it myself, but I'd been dismissed, replaced by someone who thought experience was overpriced and that problems would solve themselves. The second call came on Thursday. This time it was Trevor. "Calvin, hi. Elena mentioned you might know something about our booking system. We're having some minor discrepancies." "Minor discrepancies?" I almost laughed. "What exactly are you seeing?" I asked. "Well, some of our Champions League guests seem to be double booked. Not a big deal. We'll just move them to comparable rooms." "How many double bookings?" "Maybe 60 or 70. The system shows available inventory, so we should be fine." 60 or 70? The kid had no idea what was coming. "Trevor, you need to understand something. The available inventory numbers aren't accurate. The system has been broken for over a year. I was fixing it manually every morning." "Oh, well. Corporate should have documentation on that." "Corporate doesn't know I developed the fix myself on my own time." There was a long pause. "So how do I fix it?" he asked. "You'd need to manually audit every single reservation, check for duplicates, verify room assignments, and cross-reference with all third-party platforms. It would take about 40 hours if you knew what you were doing." 40 hours? The guests start arriving tomorrow." I sat there listening to him breathe. This was the moment I could help him drive over there, fix the mess, and save everyone's weekend. Or I could let them see what the hotel looked like without me. "I'm sorry, Trevor. I'm not an employee anymore." I hung up and turned off my phone. Friday morning at 11:00 a.m., my doorbell rang. I was in my garage organizing tools I hadn't touched in years. Mason Clark stood on my front porch in a wrinkled suit, looking like he hadn't slept. "Calvin, we need to talk." I leaned against my doorframe. "About what?" "You know about what?" The hotel is in crisis mode. We have VIP guests arriving in 3 hours and nowhere to put them. That sounds like a management problem. Mason's face reddened. Don't play games with me. Elena said you knew about the system issues and didn't report them properly. I reported them for 18 months. You told me to work with what we had. You should have documented your workarounds. This is sabotage. I almost laughed. Sabotage? I fixed your broken system for free on my own time for over a year. You fired me and replaced me with someone who doesn't know how hotels work. That's not sabotage, Mason. That's consequences. Fix it. I'm not your employee. I'll rehire. You on a temporary basis. Full salary. I looked at him standing there, desperate, probably calculating how much this disaster would cost him personally. His precious Champions League partnership was about to evaporate because he thought experience was replaceable. No thanks. Mason stepped closer. Calvin, be reasonable. This affects innocent people, staff members, guests who did nothing wrong. You should have thought about that before you decided I was too expensive. I started to close the door, but Mason grabbed it. I'll call corporate and tell them you deliberately withheld critical operational information. Go ahead. My severance agreement includes a non-disparagement clause. It works both ways, Mason. You accuse me of anything, and I'll tell corporate exactly how long you've known about the system failures. His hand dropped from the door. You want to destroy me? I don't want anything from you. I just want to be left alone. I closed the door and went back to my garage. Through the window, I watched Mason stand on my porch for 5 more minutes before walking to his car. 20 minutes later, my phone started ringing, unknown numbers, probably corporate executives or angry guests. I let them all go to voicemail. By 2 p.m., the calls had become constant. I finally listened to one of the messages, a heavily accented voice, probably UEFA's travel coordinator, speaking rapidly about missing reservations and legal obligations. I deleted it without finishing. At 4 p.m., Elena called from her personal phone. Calvin, it's worse than we thought. The lobby is full of people with confirmation numbers for rooms that don't exist. Trevor locked himself in the office. Mason is screaming at everyone. Some of the guests are threatening lawsuits. How many people are affected? Over 200. Corporate executives, UEFA officials, international press. They're all here for the Champions League coverage. Some of them flew in from Europe specifically because we guaranteed accommodations. I could hear shouting in the background. Multiple voices, different languages. What's Trevor doing? He called. Corporate, but it's Friday afternoon. Nobody's answering. He tried to manually reassign rooms, but he doesn't understand how the system works. He's made it worse. Made it worse? How? He accidentally canceled reservations for guests who are already checked in. Now we have people who were told their rooms are gone, even though they've been here for 3 days. The kid had panicked and started randomly clicking buttons, a classic mistake. Helena, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Can't you come in just for today? I looked out my window at the palm trees swaying in the afternoon breeze. For 9 years, every Friday afternoon had been spent preparing for weekend arrivals, checking VIP protocols, confirming special requests. Now I was watching birds and thinking about dinner plans. I can't do that, Elena. Why not? Because the moment I walk through that door, Mason will claim I'm responsible for fixing this. I'll be working weekends again, handling crisis calls, covering for broken systems, and the next time they want to cut costs, I'll be right back where I started. So you're just going to let it burn? I'm not letting anything burn. I just stopped putting out fires that weren't mine. Saturday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I made coffee and read through them slowly. Eleanor, Calvin, please call me. It's an emergency. Unknown number. This is Gerald Hoffman from UEFA Events Management. We need to speak immediately. Mason, answer your damn phone. Trevor, I'm begging you, please help us. The last text was from Patricia's sister, Julia, who lived in Tampa. Saw the news about your old hotel. Looks like chaos. Hope you're okay. I turned on my laptop and searched for Royale Vista Miami Champions League. The first result was a Miami Herald article with the headline, VIP Hotel Disaster Leaves Champions League Guests Stranded. Below it was a photo of the lobby filled with angry people holding suitcases. The article was brutal. Over 200 VIP guests, including UEFA officials, corporate sponsors, and international media representatives, were left without accommodations Friday evening at the Royale Vista Hotel's flagship Miami property. The hotel, which serves as overflow lodging for the Champions League final in London, reportedly suffered a catastrophic system failure that eliminated confirmed reservations. "This is completely unacceptable," said Henrik Müller, a representative from German broadcaster ZDF. "We had confirmed reservations for 6 months. Now they're telling us the rooms don't exist." The hotel's management declined to comment, but sources indicate that the crisis stems from a computerized booking system that malfunctioned during final week confirmations. I scrolled down to see quotes from stranded guests, threats of lawsuits, and speculation about the hotel's future relationship with UEFA. But the part that caught my attention was buried in the 6th paragraph. The crisis comes just 2 weeks after the hotel replaced its longtime general manager, Calvin Rodas, with Trevor Sims, a younger executive brought in as part of a cost-cutting initiative. My phone rang. Mason again. This time I answered. "What do you want?" "Have you seen the news?" "I just read it. This is a disaster, Calvin. We're going to lose our UEFA contract. Corporate is flying in from Atlanta. My job is on the line." "I'm sorry to hear that. You're not sorry. You planned." I set down my coffee. "Mason, let me explain something. I didn't plan anything. I developed a workaround for your broken system because you refused to fix it properly. When you fired me, my workaround stopped working. That's not a plan. That's basic cause and effect. You could have warned us. I did warn you for 18 months. You told me to make do with what we had. I mean, specifically, you should have told Trevor about your script. Trevor never asked. He was too busy adapting quickly to technology." Long pause. I could hear voices in the background, probably corporate executives demanding explanations. "What's it going to take?" Mason asked. "What do you mean?" "To fix this, to come back and clean up the mess?" I looked out at my backyard, where I had been planning to plant a vegetable garden. Simple project, clear steps, predictable. Results? "I'm not coming back, Mason." "Name your price." "It's not about price. You made it clear that my experience wasn't valuable, that a younger, cheaper manager could do the same job. So let him do it. Trevor quit this morning." That surprised me. "He quit?" "He walked out at 7 a.m. Said he was in over his head. I almost felt sorry for the kid. Almost. Then, find another young, adaptable manager. Calvin, please, I'll give you anything. Full control, salary increase, guaranteed job security." For how long? Until the next cost-cutting initiative? No answer. That's what I thought. Mason called back Sunday morning with a different offer. Consulting contract, 6 months. You work remotely, set your own schedule, 3 times your previous salary. I was sitting on my porch reading a book for the first time in years. Remote? From wherever you want, your choice. And what exactly would I be consulting on? System integration, crisis management, staff training, whatever it takes to stabilize the operation. 3 times my salary? That would be substantial enough to buy a small place somewhere. Warm, maybe the Caribbean, and actually retire comfortably. Send me the contract terms. So you'll consider it? I'll read it. The contract arrived by email 2 hours later. 6 months, renewable by mutual agreement, payment up front, complete operational authority for system fixes, and staff training. No requirement to be physically present except for quarterly reviews. It was generous, almost too generous. I called Elena to check on the current situation. How bad is it? We're finally back to full capacity. The Champions League disaster is ancient history. The new general manager is working out well. That's great, Elena. There's something else? Mason tried to get a job with Marriott in Orlando. They called me for a reference, and Told them the truth about the system failures, the firing, everything that happened. What did they say? They thanked me and said they'd found another candidate. I smiled. Hotel management was a small world. Word traveled fast. Elena, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever miss the chaos? She laughed. Never. We have boring, predictable operations now. It's wonderful. That evening I walked down to the beach behind my hotel. 3 guests were having dinner on the terrace, a couple from Canada celebrating their anniversary. I had personally arranged for fresh lobster from a local fisherman and champagne from my wine selection. Simple hospitality, personal service, no. Corporate protocols or profit margins to worry about. My phone buzzed with a text from Julia. Saw the article about your hotel in Travel and Leisure. Mom would be proud. I looked back at my small property, lights glowing warmly in the tropical evening. 28 rooms, but each one mattered. Each guest was my personal responsibility. I had spent 9 years building someone else's dream. Now I was living my own. As I stood on the beach watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The sound of waves lapping against the shore was a soothing backdrop to my thoughts. I had traded the chaos of corporate life for the serenity of running my own hotel, and it felt liberating. The guests were happy, the staff were thriving, and I was finally in control of my own destiny. Over the next few months, I focused on strengthening relationships with our guests and partners. I reached out to travel agents, corporate clients, and event planners, reassuring them that Sunset Bay Hotel was a reliable choice. My past experiences at Royal Vista had given me invaluable insights into what guests wanted, and I was determined to apply that knowledge here. One afternoon, while I was reviewing the reservation reports in my office, Elena called again. Calvin, I've been hearing great things about Sunset Bay. People are starting to talk about you. That's good to hear, Elena. We're building a reputation, and I want to keep it that way. It's important to me that our guests feel like they matter. They do. And I think we're starting to earn back trust from the corporate accounts that left Royal Vista after the disaster. That's encouraging. Let's keep working on those relationships. As I hung up, I couldn't help but think about how far I'd come. I'd taken a leap of faith, and it was paying off. I was no longer just a manager. I was an owner, and with that came a sense of pride and responsibility. One evening, I found myself dining with a couple at the hotel's restaurant. They were celebrating their honeymoon, and they couldn't stop raving about the service and the personal touches I had arranged. You know, Calvin, this has been the best experience of our lives, the husband said, beaming at his wife. We'll definitely be back. Hearing that filled me with a warmth I hadn't felt in years. This was what it was all about, creating memorable experiences for people and being a part of their stories. As the months rolled on, I continued to implement changes that enhanced our operations. I hired staff who shared my vision for quality, service, and trained them personally. I made sure they understood the importance of each guest, just as I had learned during my years at Royal Vista. One day, while I was reviewing the guest feedback forms, I received a notification on my phone. It was an email from the regional vice president at Royal Vista. Calvin, we would like to discuss a potential collaboration between Sunset Bay and Royal Vista. We believe your success could be beneficial to both parties. I stared at the email, for a moment contemplating the offer. It was tempting, but I remembered the chaos I had left behind. The thought of returning to that environment filled me with dread. I had worked too hard to build something that was truly mine. I decided to respond, but I made it clear that I was not interested in returning to the corporate grind. Instead, I offered to share my insights on crisis management and operational stability. I appreciate the offer, but I believe my focus should remain on Sunset Bay. However, I'm open to offering consulting services to help improve your systems if you're interested. As I sent the email, I felt a sense of closure. I had moved on from my past, and it felt good. I was no longer defined by my former position. I was my own boss now. As I settled into my new routine, I found joy in the little things, morning walks along the beach, chatting with guests, and ensuring that each aspect of the hotel ran smoothly. I even took time to indulge in personal hobbies I had neglected for years, like gardening and painting. One day, while tending to a small herb garden I had started by the hotel, I spotted a familiar face walking towards me. It was Julia, my sister-in-law. "I couldn't believe it when I saw the news about your hotel. Mom would really be proud of you," she said, giving me a warm hug. "Thanks, Julia. It's been a journey, but I finally feel like I'm where I belong." We spent the afternoon catching up, and I shared stories about the hotel and the guests. I felt grateful to have her support, and it reminded me of the importance of family and connections in life. As the sun set that evening, I stood on the terrace looking out at the ocean. I realized that I was living my dream, one that I had fought hard to achieve. I had found my place in the world, and I was determined to keep it thriving. Each day brought new challenges, but with them came the opportunity to grow and make a real difference in the lives of others. I smiled, knowing that the best was yet to come at Sunset Bay Hotel.